All right. Well, I am live, so apologies on the delay. I'm going to put the link in the chat. I'm going to let people load in here since I was a little bit late. So stand by. Sorry, it was just giving me an error when I was trying to go live here. So let me get this situated. I'll get the other one deleted out, and then we'll be on our way. So like I said, I'm going to let some people get in here. Let's see if this works. I'm deleting the old one. Let me go delete on YouTube as well. We got person in here. All right, I'm trying to load some people up in here. Again, apologies for the delay. YouTube, or I'm sorry, StreamYard was giving me an error trying to go live on YouTube. So I had to create a second link now. So I got people scattered between two videos. So let me go ahead and try to get rid of this one here so we can get more people in here. Again, apologies about that. All right, we got about 8 people in this one now. Cool. So let me go through here. I'm going to go to my lives and just try to delete this one out of here so people don't get confused. If I can figure out how to do to delete things. You think I know this by now. But we got a packed show to get into. I'm gonna try to just screw with this a little bit. I'll stick with what we got here right now. We got 8 people in here, so I feel like we got some of the people switched over from the other one over to here. So what's going on, Jackson? Fongway's getting back in here. Cool. I appreciate y'all hopping over. Again, I'm trying to go in to delete the old stream. I don't understand StreamYard sometimes. I opened it in a new tab, and then all of a sudden it worked for me again. So if y'all want to just let people know that we are over here, that'd be great. So all right, so packed show. As y'all can see, it's me solo today. I will have some stuff coming up for y'all next week. I have a guest coming up for y'all next week, but we got a lot of stuff to cover today in the world of Nebraska football. And this past week, I touched on in a couple of videos, I touched on the Jamar Mosely hire. So we're going to go into the Jamar Mosely hire, touch a little bit on to what this means potentially for Nebraska landing Isaiah Mozee. Where we stand with that. David Sanders has given a update today on his intentions in advance of his August 17th commitment date, stating that he would like to start to do some more visits and stuff like that. So we'll be out on the recruiting trail about David Sanders. We got Big Ten Media Days coming up, some expansion talk, and I also got a little bit of a UTEP preview that I've drummed up for y'all if we do have time at the end of the show. So we'll get into a little bit of preparing for this upcoming season. I'll start to preview some of Nebraska's games. And of course, we're going to start with UTEP. Now, first things first, the one thing that I didn't get to touch on this week's videos. And again, first things first, actually, let me start with this. If y'all don't mind, we got 20 people in here. Just leaving a like. It really helps me out, helps get people in here, helps the algorithm. It makes YouTube like me. So drop your comments as well. Drop your questions. I'm going to be getting to questions as we go along in the episode. So continue to drop those in there, your questions, comments, concerns, or whatever, and we'll touch on those. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into the commitment news of the week. Bryson Weber. Now, Bryson Weber, I'm not sure if y'all remember, I did a film review on Bryson Weber previously. And Bryson Weber has a very interesting story if you have not seen that video yet. But essentially, the way Bryson Weber came to be a cornerback was interesting because he was at one point a wide receiver. Now, he was on the bench as a wide receiver, not due to anything to do with his lack of skill or anything of that nature, but it was more so it was a very crowded room of prospects. And, the coaching staff saw the tools that he had. And again, speaking about ball skills, which is one of the most underrated aspects to me of a defensive back that you can have is ball skills. But Bryson, they saw his ball skills, they saw his frame, and they thought he would be a good fit for corner. So, they moved him over to corner, and turns out, that was the right move. They thought that he would, translate better to the next level as a cornerback, and him being coachable as he is. And that does show just how coachable he is. He's willing to open the opportunity and open the door to be moved around. And as we know in this defense and just an offensive defense in general on this Nebraska team right now, versatility is one of the key criteria that they're looking for in a lot of these guys. So you have a guy here who, plays at a high level as a wide receiver and has switched over to cornerback, and in just a short amount of time has become a 3-star, 88 rated 3-star cornerback in this class. So, Nebraska was actually the first school that evaluated him at cornerback, and I know that went a long way with him. Now, one of the main things that I spoke about in that video is just his relationship with Evan Cooper. And when speaking about the Evan Cooper situation, Bryson Weber had not yet committed yet, but was looking towards committing. Losing Evan Cooper was one of the things there that was going to be really iffy when it came to Bryson Weber and his commitment to the program. Now, they spoke with him, in regards to that. And he said he committed on his last day of his official visit when Coop was there. Officially had told the staff and everybody that he committed when Cooper was still there. Now, he said he was fully committed when he told them, he already made the calls to the coaches, said he's committed, but he thought about Rule, he stepped back and said he thought about how Rule and the rest of the staff were. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we've kind of spoken about on the show is the consistency and the messaging across the board. And one of the biggest reasons why Matt Rule's staff and why it is important that he does have a lot of these connections that he's had long lasting is because the messaging across the board stays the same. So he's able to kind of send, your Evan Coopers, who he's worked with for a decade over, to recruit a guy like a Bryson Weber. And he's able to tell him, this is what to expect. He instills this culture and tells them the type of person and character that they want to bring to the program. And, that is echoed across the entire staff. So that is another thing about this is when you lose a guy, you lose Evan Cooper, which is a huge loss, of course. But when you have that consistency across the coaching staff, it's not going to cause that much friction as it would in another situation where, let's say he's bought into this one coach. This one coach is preaching like, his style of coaching, what he looks for, and the staff in general is looking out for the longevity of the recruit and trying to tell it. Everybody's telling them the same thing, what we're all looking for. You're not going to be set in one cornerback room under one coach. You might move, so you got to get familiar with all the coaches. And Bryson Weber clearly did establish a relationship with all the coaches, and it paid dividends in the long term. Bryson, he said Nebraska kept it straightforward. They told him that they'd love for him to play corner. Again, the first schools that evaluate him as a corner. And he saw an opportunity to compete and make an impact sooner rather than later in Lincoln. He wants to get on the field. He said if they were bigger, the safety position will be open as well. So we'll see just kind of how that works with his, he's got 6'2.5" height. I think he said he was 6'2", 185 officially measured. So 6'2", rangy guy. Like I said, the coaching staff saw his physical attributes, thought corner would be a good fit, and his ball skills. And 185 pounds is listed as a 175 on 24/7 Sports. So you got to think he can add probably another 15, 20 pounds to that frame. But a very, he wants to emulate Stephon Gilmore. And another thing I like about him, he's a very cerebral, right? Bryson Weber, when talking about who he looks up to, he talked about Stephon Gilmore, not necessarily for his athleticism or those details, but mainly because of his IQ and knowing where the ball is going, knowing how to respond. He loves that side of the game. And that shows a lot on his film. And that's why I feel like he was able to transition very well over, because he didn't try to do too much, right? He keeps his eyes in the backfield. He keeps his eyes on the ball, which is very important because you don't see him get beat a lot in terms of the play movement behind the line of scrimmage. And a young cornerback, they're going to try to trick him up with, those type of motions, those type of movements and stuff like that. And also, he knows when to step up and be able to shut down a run play off the edge, or whenever to step up and be able to kind of, pop up and lurk the ball. Again, you don't want to jump in front of the receiver unless you can get both hands on the ball in a 3-3-5, very risk reward type of defense. But plays a lot of man coverage on his film, so you'll see a ton of man coverage and just a really good understanding of how to play the ball, and that all comes from his ball skills. So those couple things right there, paired with his length, naturally gives him a leg up when it comes to playing the cornerback position. And cornerbacks are one of those positions you can't have enough of right now. As we know, we've seen it, every single step of this offseason. The cornerback has been the biggest pain in our butt this offseason, mainly because lack of depth. And then, of course, we have some nagging injuries coming up. So Bryson Weber still committed, and again, I think in this 3-3-5, it plays a lot to his strengths more so than another defense. You look at a lot of these guys, and these guys are rated as a all-encompassing defensive player rating, but then you look at the 3-3-5, and it's kind of suited towards players of certain skill types, right? So you can get away with being a little bit smaller and faster as a linebacker or a defensive lineman. So the 3-3-5 plays really well to his strengths, and you see that a lot of on his film of what it shows up to. And I think the staff did a really good job in finding him as kind of a diamond in the rough. And diamond in the rough is an 88 rated 3-star. Again, they were the first team that evaluated him at cornerback, so it turned out to work out for the best. So Bryson Weber there, just a big get there. Again, if you didn't watch my film review yet, go check that out. So I'm going to jump into some of your comments just here real quick in the jump. Long way made it over. William, go Big Red. I appreciate you stopping in. William, Ken, what's going on, Ken? Yo, go Big Red. I can't talk. Y'all go see Ken over at Generation Red podcast on YouTube as well. Jim, what's going on, man? Get him, Justin. What's going on, man? Never mind me. We're getting closer to game day. Big Ten, man. And apologies, I was going to be going to Big Ten Media Days at the end of this month. However, my credentials got approved a little late. We put them in a little late. So next year I will for sure be out there. This year, just the money wise, it was going to cost a little bit much being this late in the process. My credentials got approved last week. So, but I will have, we will have coverage at Big Ten Media Days coming up. So, we have boots on the ground out there, a couple people out there, as well as my co-host on the Big Ten show, Sonny Verma, will probably be out there as well. So I'll be bringing y'all coverage from Big Ten Media Days. Go Big Red. What's going on, Justin? Huskers would do well in getting a strong foothold in the Houston market. As a Houston kid, I 100% agree. I don't know if y'all have seen that little layout they have of all the high schools, and Harris County has probably more high schools than any county I've ever seen. Ton of talent in that area. So it would be, just Texas in general. It's a good place to tap into. Nebraska lost that as a pipeline back in the transition over from the Big 12 to the Big 10. That was where a lot of Nebraska's talent came from. And it's a lot of the top NFL talent comes out of Texas, Florida. It's no secret. So you got to recruit heavy in those states. That's where the competition is, those type of states, and then you got your blue chippers in your states like Missouri and your New Jersey's, but you got to keep in those Texas. And that's why Matt Rule's, recruited Texas heavier as a tertiary state and was his main focus coming into the school. So what Rule does get him foothold in all of Texas. Yes. And we'll get into a little bit of what coaching. Again, when he brought on Bob Wager last year, we know that ended badly, of course, with the DUI. But with the new hire of Isaiah Mozee, we'll get into a little bit of why that's also important in terms of these guys not only being out in the recruiting trail, and there's probably more staff changes to come, potentially more hires to be brought on, but these guys will also get a foothold in coaching because of the recent change there. So it's all about money now. WTF, Thomas, what happened? What'd I do? Bit ridiculous deal in absolutes. It's not about all the money for everyone. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't think talking in just generalized statements. Again, let's talk about David Sanders. We'll go ahead and get into David Sanders. Oh, yes, we're gonna get into this. Nebraska, if you've seen me talk about David Sanders before, Nebraska with David Sanders in the recruiting process, right? David Sanders was initially he wasn't being recruited heavy by Nebraska when Raiola was over at Georgia, committed to Georgia and kind of peer recruiting over there and in the recruitment process over there. David Sanders, knew Raiola from over there. And it wasn't until Raiola moved over to Nebraska that then they started reaching out to Sanders and kind of talking about his recruitment over to Nebraska. It was one of those things. He's a 5-star plus on On3. So he was a guy that was going to be very tough to get. But when you had the prospect of Raiola coming on, but what that meant was Nebraska kind of got to him a little late in the process. Now, one of the big things to note is that Clemson, which is his hometown team, is out of the running. Okay. But now he announced that, and I talked about this before when he announced his top 4. I didn't think Nebraska was in a great position just because of that. But the fact that we were in his top 4 was huge. Right. But now he's talking about how he wants to take more visits, and that bodes best for Nebraska in terms of Nebraska being the one that was the latest into the process, but also was able to beat out some of the schools that got into the recruiting process on him early, mainly Clemson. So the longer that Nebraska hangs in this, and the more that they're able to get him to campus, I believe they've already got to campus twice. If they can get him to campus again, things get very, very interesting because, and this could partially be one of the reasons why he still wants to do some visits. Maybe he wants to go check Nebraska out again. And it seems like he's really doesn't have his mind made up. These are his top 4 schools. And there was a lot of talk about, and this is necessarily something I don't like, when we're speaking about like players only wanting money, talking about generalizations, talking about people saying David Sanders put Nebraska in his top 4 because, Nebraska wasn't in his top at one point, put Nebraska in his top 4 for clicks. And he's a 5-star plus. The last thing that David Sanders needs is clicks. He is one of the top recruits in the country. No matter what school he puts up there, he's going to put clicks. And Clemson, if he would have just kept it a top 5 and put Clemson up there, if that was the case, Nebraska is very much in the running for this exceptional offensive tackle. And he is one of the most well-rounded tackles I've seen on film in a long time. He has the abilities of, some of the tackles that I've gone over earlier in this offseason on talking about recruiting on film, but he molds together 2 of the things that are valuable in each of those different styles of. So he's the type of guy who can beat you with his punch, which his punch is just basically his push out when an offensive tackle meets you at the point of attack and they get their hands on you initially, that's the punch, right? And so he's got a lot of power, he's got a lot of punch, but he also has exceptionally quick feet. He's very agile and fast and mobile. He's strong. There's a reason he's a 5-star plus. He's a do-it-all type of guy that probably could play anywhere on the line he wants, but with the rangier, longer arms, he's going to be more suited for the tackle position just because of his quick feet and everything that he, so David Sanders is going to be a huge, huge one to watch. Again, Nebraska right now, I would have us kind of in the back end of this, but if he gets back to campus, we've seen Matt Rule's success rate in getting people to campus. That is a whole different ballgame if they can get him out there another time. And that shows just how interested he is and how much it would be interesting to see what schools he visits too. Because is he going to try to visit all 4? Is he just going to try to visit 1 or 2? It remains to be seen, but the way he schedules the visits will be something to notice too, because that'll be a little bit telling about which are the schools that he wants to have the extra visits for and kind of how he's weighing this out. So David Sanders, Nebraska still very much in the running for David Sanders there. So, all right. The next thing that I wanted to touch on, and I had my Jamar Mosely video, I believe 2 days ago, right? And Nebraska, of course, hiring Jamar Mosely. Now, one of the things I will say in my Jamar Mosely video, and I'm going to continue getting your comments, just keep dropping them in there. I see them popping in. So one of the things that came with Jamar Mosely's hiring is the potential flip of his son, Isaiah Mosely. Okay. Now, Isaiah Mosely is a guy, and I'm going to pull up his 24/7 here so you can kind of take a look too. So Isaiah Mosely, he's 6'1", 185. He is a guy who plays a little bit of running back. He plays a little bit of he plays a lot of wide receiver mainly, but he plays at running back. And one of the things that I've noticed when watching his film is quick feet, lateral movement, and he has the ability. He runs hard like a running back would. Now you see the difference. You see like an Isaiah Pacheco, right? Isaiah Pacheco runs very aggressive for a running back, right? But there's that plant your foot in the ground running style of some running backs. And when he's carrying the ball as a running back, he has that, right? And it translates over into his football, right? He's not a power guy, but he runs with tenacity. He runs with conviction, right? And so there's a little bit of difference with running with power when you're a power guy trying to just bowl through people. And then when you're a plant and drive guy or you're a quick feet type of guy. So it says something about somebody who can run hard and run through arm tackles as well as being quick and light on his feet. And he does a very good balance of both of those things. So, he was being recruited by Alabama, Auburn, South Carolina, Missouri, which you notice are all SEC schools. Ultimately did commit to Oregon. However, Dad coming over here makes things very interesting. He did visit Nebraska as well. He visited Nebraska as an Oregon commit. So we'll see in the future how that comes along. But one of the things that I made it a key to note is Isaiah Mozee is very much a potential Nebraska flip, but I wanted the focus to mostly be on the Jamar Mosely hire long term, because I think that's what the majority of most Nebraska fans want to see is how he translates as a coach long term. You know, what happens if we miss out on Isaiah Mosely? And it's the same thing that we kind of had with Donovan Raiola, right? Whenever Dylan was, trying to come over or talking about coming over to Nebraska in his initial recruitment, when we retained when we retained Raiola, people thought it was mainly to get Dylan. And when Dylan didn't come, everybody kind of just let him have it. And I don't think Nebraska in any situation has gotten a coach to get a specific player. I think Matt Rhule's a little bit more forward thinking than that, right? So while Isaiah Mosely is a big byproduct of getting Jamar, I think what Jamar brings to this team as a coach is what the people should majority be focused on, right? Because Jamar Mosely in his own right was an excellent coach at where he was, and it's evident in hearing him talk. I went and listened to a bunch of interviews with him. I went back and watched some of his coaching stuff, and I actually watched an interview where he was named the NAIA Coach of Character, got the Coach of Character award in 2023 and 2024. Now, Mosely, of course, being hired as a senior football assistant, and kind of what I was talking about earlier with the interesting change that's happened to the coaches. And I'm sure you have heard this. I talked about it in my video, but about a month ago, they came out with the fact that now analysts in Nebraska got in trouble for this back in COVID, having an analyst like coaching. But these guys can now actually coach the players. These analysts and quality control guys can come in and they can actually be on the field and help coach some of these players up. So not only are these guys going to be used more on the recruiting trail, but they're also going to be utilized coaching as well, because now that they're able to have all hands on deck when it comes to coaching. So, what Jamar brings and what he brings culture-wise, and I think that's the biggest thing I try to focus on when Nebraska gets a new hires. Does he fit this new culture that they're trying to bring in? Okay. And essentially what the players and staff had to say when talking about him, right, is they said about 15 players that, he coached used the word love when talking about the football program. So, he was a very successful coach in terms of his record. He led them to a Missouri Classic semifinals in 21-22 and a quarterfinals in 2023. Now 6A, of course, being the biggest level of a ball there. And that was at Lee Summit North. So he was there for 9 years, 64-38 record. But over the last 3 of his seasons, he was 33-5. So again, just a sustained record there of turning it around and then being able to kind of sustain it over the last back half of that, tenure there. And then, stepped down in February, moved over to UCF for the spring, and then now he's over at Nebraska. And, we'll start to see kind of some of these coaching positions and staffs and their roles get finalized as we come down. That's usually how it works when we have new staff members. We'll start to get finalized in more specific roles for some of these coaches and what they're going to be doing. But that was a school that he went to that won 4 games prior to his arrival, and he had them 33-5 over his final 3 seasons there. Okay. And I think what he talks about in his preparation, he talks about consistency. He talks about, sportsmanship, leadership, like life lessons, teamwork. And his main quote that I like, he says, character has everything to do with consistency and how you treat people every day. He says, do you tell the truth? Are you consistent in that? And then what do people feel when they leave your presence? And then how do we treat people from all walks of life? And it starts with respect, but not only for others, but for ourselves, right? And again, he said, we like to use the word love. And that was echoed by the players. Now, not only talking about just his culture and his mindset, but let's talk about some of the talent that has come out of there. So, he said 35 guys were playing college football as of last year from his school. And he mentioned, having respect for those guys and being a part of their lives and their careers. And then he also mentioned the guys who went out and were firefighters, policemen, and did other things with their lives, and them coming back and telling him how much he's helped them and keeps them going. But he's had 35 guys playing college football from his school, and just a very, very high character, high level coach. And I think a lot of what we need to focus on too, and bringing these guys in, is you get a guy like a Jamar Mosely who's more culture driven, and then you have a guy like that we brought in, and oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank. John Butler, sorry, who is very much more head to the grindstone coaching, right? Like, of course, but he's very much a go-getter type of, I want to work and grind, and he's very passionate about his coaching, right? And Jamar is the same way, but he's very much culture driven, right? And there's two different styles of coaching. It's a good mold and a mixture of both of those. But Jamar, for what he brings outside of just his son, is going to be very, very key to this team and continuing this culture. Again, what we lose, and when we lose some of these coaches, and what we fear is losing that culture and some of these players leaving. I think that's a testament to, again, why guys like Bryson Weber didn't want to leave whenever the first sight of, Evan Cooper, right after he's ready to, commit, that happens, and Nebraska's still able to retain him. Again, that's where the culture is important. That's where building this in the building and having it, we talked about culture under Frost. Now I think we're starting to see what that means. So, all right, let me go ahead and get into some of the comments here. Again, I'm trying to talk through this stuff kind of quickly. I know I got a little late start on the show because of the issues with my StreamYard, so apologies about that. So, let's see. All right. What's going on, John? So y'all can catch John Diadamo after this show, immediately following this show, over on the Michigan channel. They got a lot of good stuff going on over there. Y'all can go check out my background I made for them. So yeah, a lot of good stuff going over there on the Michigan channel if y'all want to go check them out. Been going a legendary run at UMass and the road to glory. Oh yeah, drop your comments. I got to know, how are the road to glory and dynasty or whatever coming along? I am one of the, listen, I have FOMO really bad. Okay. I sold my PS5 a couple years back because I was spending too much time, playing video games, kind of bad for my mental health. I have some mental health issues. So like it wasn't good for me, playing Call of Duty and getting mad at kids and stuff like that. So, like, it made me more mad than anything. So I sold it. And now NCAA 25 comes out and it's not out for PC, and I don't have a console to play it on. And then I was thinking about buying one, but then I thought about it a little further, and I'm like, I just really don't have time to play it right now. But I was sincerely regretting that yesterday. So let me know y'all's thoughts in the game. I want to know your biggest surprises, what you think they did well on. Like, did they do well in Nebraska? I've seen a lot of videos and stuff like that, but I'm curious everybody's take. Coach Mozee is a great hire, great recruiter. Son will follow his dad. He coached him his high school career. Go Big Red. Yeah, I'm hopeful that he will. Again, Isaiah Mozee would be a great grab for this team. Very, 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 very high level receiver with a lot of room to grow as well. So I'll say this: Rule is getting higher ranked players to come and visit. You can't land them all, but getting them here. Exactly. That's another thing. That's another keynote too that I put on my David Sanders post from a while back. Is it starts somewhere, right? And what if these other schools that we're in competition with have that we don't right now? Okay, so Nebraska has money. We do have money, of course. Ohio State has money. Tennessee has money. Georgia has money. Those schools right now are winning. Okay, and of course we all know that, right? But the fact that Nebraska wasn't even getting these guys, not only were they not in these guys' top list, but they weren't getting 5 stars to campus. We get a lot of high-level 4 stars. We get a lot of, but more often than not, we would end up landing with some kind of secondary or tertiary 3 stars. Sometimes out of the Florida area, because for us, commitment to Florida was so, but he started not being able to pluck some of those from those other schools in Florida. And so, now we're in a situation where Matt Rule is in one season not only gotten a 5-star to commit, and I know we're talking about it's Raiola, so there's a little bit of an incentive there, but I mean, for us, couldn't land Raiola. But now we have, multiple 5-stars that have visited this offseason. Now we're in a 5-star plus offensive tackles top 4 list, right? The next thing that comes, if Nebraska starts winning this year, well, then all of a sudden now Nebraska moves up a little bit more on those lists, right? Now people are starting to see the vision. Look at Texas, for instance, right? It took Texas 1 year of kind of that turnaround. And now, boom, boom, boom. They're a tough school to beat on the recruiting trail again. I mean, they've been a tough school to beat on the recruiting trail again, but just it happens quickly. Recency bias is a thing. Nebraska comes out here, rattles off 8, 9 wins, 10 wins. I'm not saying we're going to win 10, guys. I'm just saying. But rattle off 8, 9 wins, and all of a sudden the vision starts to show itself, and these players start to see, okay, Nebraska is where they haven't been in a long time. So all that whole Nebraska was supposed to be a bowl game this year, haven't won a bowl game since 2016. All of that stuff's gone. One season, a lot of that stuff can be gone, and then all of a sudden Nebraska's back into the picture for a lot of these guys. And landing a guy like a David Sanders this offseason would automatically, without the winning, put Nebraska in a leg up for a lot of these guys looking, because recruits pay attention. All right. Coach Rule, sorry. Wilson did a video review on him earlier. Jamar was coach at the time. The playbook appears very advanced for high schoolers, so he coached at a high level. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And go check out Wilson's video on him earlier. I didn't get a chance to check that out yet, but yeah, get on over to Wilson Dittman's channel and get a chance to check that out if you can. Moonbot in here. Moonbot went into hiding for a little bit, but shout out to Moonbot. He won a $100 bet with Wilson over on his channel and donated it to a charity, I believe. So shout out to Moonbot and being a good dude and always here supporting. John D'Animo, yep, go on there, join them over on the Michigan channel. Any update on getting more guys from the islands to get on board? Nothing yet. It's a real quiet period right now. So, but I will keep y'all looped in on any of the greatest breaking news, but also the latest breaking news. Hopefully it's the greatest breaking news. Sonny, appreciate you hopping in, our hardest working guy in the Husker space. Make sure you give Justin a like in the video. Much appreciated, Sonny. Sonny, my co-host on the Big Ten Show and over on Locked On Illini, over on the Locked On Network. So shout out to him. The new NCAA, all they did was make it to a college version of Madden. Now, I've heard a lot of arguing about this. I've heard people saying that in the run, I'm not calling you out here, sir, but I saw a tweet earlier that said, if you say this, that you're just not good at the game. I'm not saying that. I don't have the game, so I can't. I'm probably terrible at it, but that's neither here nor there. I'll let y'all argue about that in the comments. I watched us lose to UTEP in Colorado by NU fans playing and streaming it. Yeah, that's a bad day. Y'all probably should have deleted those videos. 56 likes, but only 23 or 50 watching. Give them a like. Appreciate it. Appreciate it, Parks. D Parks. Appreciate you jumping in here. And I appreciate you. If y'all don't mind dropping a like, let me know what y'all think of this. So let's go ahead and move on to what I was talking about earlier. Let's go ahead and get into the little bit of Florida State news. Since we had a comment about that, we'll go ahead and dive into that. Now, what's going on with Florida State right now is when it comes to conference realignment, we know this has been the biggest painstaking thing of this offseason, and it's been a somewhat quiet offseason. However, the one thing that we know that's constant is constant conversation about the juggling of conferences adding new teams, the ACC and all that stuff. It's getting to the point right now where I think the conferences are sick of expansion as well. We're coming up on media days. SEC media days are going on right now as we speak. And Florida State has been in a lawsuit for a few months now with, the ACC, Clemson, Florida State, that whole, grant rights lawsuits. They were having an argument where they wanted to hold it, in Florida, where they wanted to hold it in, where the ACC headquarters are. So it's been this whole big thing. Now, coming out of that, Florida State has been kind of trying to get away from the ACC and find a home. Well, now it's looking potentially like they might not have a home. The Big Ten doesn't want them. The SEC doesn't want them. Okay. The reason being, Sankey came out today. Sankey, the SEC commissioner, came out today and said it doesn't make financial sense, that they have, like I said, no more appetite for expansion, and that Florida State isn't a good partner to work with. Now, I can see why that would be the case, because They're fighting the ACC tooth and nail. Now, the ACC is complicit in their part of this. There's no good standing out of this. But they basically said that with the accusations too that Florida State had towards certain people on the ACC's staff and all those other things, that it just hasn't been a good look for Florida State as it is. And it would take 12 of the 16 SEC presidents to be able to bring them on to the SEC. Okay, so the SEC is out on Florida State. Now, what does that mean for the Big Ten? Now, Tony Petitti spoke about this a little bit, and the Big Ten is quote unquote staying away from expansion. Right now, we're at 18 teams, of course, and it would expedite more chaos by adding them. And the thing that it seems like it would take right now for Florida State to land in any conference would be a complete disintegration of the ACC altogether. It would just have to completely implode and go away. And even then, Florida State might be in dire straits, because right now, and another thing factors into wanting them in the Big Ten is AAU status, right? So with AAU status, Nebraska, of course, people talk about Nebraska being the one team that doesn't have AAU status in the Big Ten currently. Well, when Nebraska was brought on and signed in to come to the conference, Nebraska had AAU status. Now, the reason why Nebraska doesn't have AAU status is because they put focus on the AAU in medical research, right? Not agricultural research, or not agriculture. That's where Nebraska kind of fell off. And not necessarily fell off. There's nothing to do with in terms of academics. It's just they put more of a focus on medical research. So in recent years, Nebraska has come up with a different reporting criteria standard to actually report those numbers to make it to where they kind of fit more of what the AAU is looking for. They just change the way they structure and the way they produce the numbers. And so that way, Nebraska's working back its standing with the AAU. Now, Florida State also has a plan to get back into the AAU. But the one thing with Nebraska that they had is the Big Ten wanted Nebraska. The Big Ten saw a benefit and a value in adding Nebraska. Right now, they see no benefit in adding Florida State. So while AAU status is not a requirement, it is a strong, strong preference. Okay. And so if it's a strong preference, then that means they would take you if you were in good standing in every other avenue that they wanted you. Financially, if you were able to help in every other way that they would take you in. But right now, Florida State's not. So the likelihood of them probably coming over to the Big Ten is very, very slim. Like I said, it would take some implosion of the ACC for them to be able to come over or be in a position to come over. And I don't see that coming in the near future. So there's kind of what we're talking about with the whole Florida State thing. And that comment earlier is just right now, Florida State and Clemson are just in a weird situation, but Florida State is not in a good straight right now. They are fighting for their lives out here, and they just got told that neither big super conference wants them. So that's something to also monitor there. Now, since I got about 15 minutes left, I promised a UTEP preview. So let's go ahead and let's talk UTEP. So first off, let's go ahead and get, if y'all want to drop them in there while I'm running through this UTEP preview, drop your final score predictions in there. What you think we're going to do to UTEP. UTEP again, I have nothing against UTEP. They are just the first victim on the schedule here. So, their coach Scotty Walden seems like a cool guy in interviews, seems like a true Southern head coach, just a real funny, high energy type of guy, the exact type of guy you'd expect to be coaching a Texas team down there. So let's talk about UTEP. So UTEP's coming off of a 3-9 2023 season. Okay, 19.9 points per game, which was 119th in the FBS. Okay, with a bottom 15th strength of schedule. Okay, this is not a UTEP roast. I promise. I'm just giving you an idea of what we're going up against. Now, they're implementing this up-tempo offense, which is going to be called the Blue Blaze, right? And it's a run-first offense. So it's a run-first offense because the strength of this team is right now in their running back room, because they lost a lot of talent. So just to put it in perspective, they have 7 returning starters on both sides of the ball, just total on both sides of the ball. Lost most of their starters to the portal. They have 10 incoming transfers from Austin P. PA. I really never knew how to pronounce that, but I've always called it Austin P. But that's where Scotty Walden came over from. So 10 players over from that team. And at quarterback, they got their quarterback McConnell. Now they have a couple quarterbacks that are going to be vying for the position, but McConnell seems to be the favorite. He's a junior quarterback, but 54% completion percentage, 1,400 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 4 picks, and he is a pro passer. He is not a dual threat guy. The other guy who will be competing with is a dual threat guy. So Locklear is the other guy. Locklear coming over from Austin P was their starting quarterback over there, and he's going to be your more dual threat guy. So right now it's looking like McConnell is in the lead to be the starter, but we'll see how that goes. But yeah, passing number is not the best. 54% completion percentage leaves a lot to be desired from a pro style guy. So I'm not counting out Locklear just yet. Okay. Looking at their wide receiver room, ton of turnover, but there's a lot of potential there. So that's something to be mindful of is you're not going to, in the very undersized receiver room, I think they have one who's 5'8", one who's 5'7", and I think they have one who's 6 foot, who's probably going to be their tallest receiver. I have to re-look at the depth chart, but I believe 6 foot is their tallest guy coming back from last season. He had about 100 some odd yards receiving. Okay. Moving over to their running back room, Javon Jackson Key. So he's Javon Jackson. He's their key player coming back from last season. So he's going to be the star of this offense. Now, the issue lies when you have a star of your offense as a running back, but you have an extremely undersized defensive line where you have one guy coming back from your offensive line. Okay, so they are very, very thin up front in experience and in size. And so their D-line has talent, but their D-line's a little bit undersized. Their O-line lacks experience and talent, and they are undersized. So that is one thing to focus on there. On the offensive side of the ball, they do have some flashy guys. They're going to be trying to run this up-tempo style of offense. But one of the things that comes with an up-tempo style of offense, if it's not working successfully, then that means you're going to be putting your defense on the field a lot. So another thing too, they have this kind of hybrid wide receiver running back role called the minor back. Of course, they're the UTEP Miners. And so that's going to be something to look out for too. A very versatile offense. It's going to be an up-tempo offense, but it's just going to be a very inexperienced offense. This is kind of a transition year for UTEP. Really bad year for them to have Nebraska first on the schedule. They have a pretty difficult schedule overall looking through it top to bottom. So yeah, on the offensive side of the ball, there's not a ton coming back, not a ton of explosion on that side of the ball. And then looking over the defensive side of the ball, you're going to see a very familiar system that they run there, the 3-3-5. So they have the 3-3 stack. They're bringing in the 3-3-5. So they have, Maurice Westmoreland is coming back, and he was a Conference USA first team all conference. And again, that's big on that defensive line, but their defensive line overall is undersized. There's some talent over there. So their defensive line is going to be good. But the fact that they are undersized, they're bringing in the 3-3-5. The 3-3-5 does tend to benefit undersized defensive linemen. Again, you want to be, it's a little bit less beefier up front, and you want to have those guys that are a little bit, stronger, quicker. It helps mask some of those undersized positions because you're a little bit more of a faster type of you mix things up with your defensive fronts and your looks and your stunts more so. So that is something to know, that they are undersized. However, the 3-3-5 could mask some of that. Looking over at kind of like their defensive backs. So let's go over their defensive backs. Let's start at linebacker. Linebacker, they got an entirely new linebacking core. I'll just start there. Dorian Hopkins is about 6 foot 225, came over from Tulsa. And then they have their senior nickelback, Oscar Moore, who's 6'1", 208, had 24 tackles last year. He's going to be the one returning guy on that linebacking core. And then we'll bump over to the strength of their defense, which is their secondary. Okay, so they're returning a couple guys from last year who were their leading tackles. Josiah Allen, who was their leading tackle. He's a returning senior safety. And then you have their senior cornerback, A.J. Odoms. It's about 5'11", 175. Odoms had 36 tackles to Allen's team lead 41 tackles. You have Corey Chapman at safety, 5'10", 178 safety coming over from Austin P. Again, another one of those guys that followed Walden over from Austin P. And so yeah, they're a school in a transition, and I think it's very safe to say that Nebraska will have their way with this UTEP team, and that's it just is what it is at that point. And I'm not in a position as a Nebraska fan to say anybody's an easy win, but this one right here, it looks like they've had so much turnover, more so it's looking like a UTEP's like Colorado in terms of the portal. They just kind of had a bunch of people go out, had a bunch of people come in. They're undersized, potential flash at a lot of different positions. Now I'm not going to compare them to Colorado, of course, being a little crass there, but it's kind of the same concept. But that 3-3-5 defense, Nebraska knows the 3-3-5 defense well. So, it's one of the things that the offense sees a lot, practice, of course. So they're going to know how to run this offense against, that 3-3-5. So it's one of those things where it's going to be tough sledding for UTEP to try to be able to trick Nebraska up in a lot of ways, especially on the defensive side of the ball, with Nebraska understanding the 3-3-5 as well as they do, because Tony White's lineage in the 3-3-5 goes back to people who founded the 3-3-5 defense, essentially, almost. So his understanding of it is very, very in-depth. So all right, let me go ahead and get through some of y'all's comments here. Love the game, but I'm just pointing out what I noticed. I haven't played it though. Okay, got it. Yeah. I haven't played Madden in a few years either. I stopped buying Madden in like 2020 because I was one of those guys that was complaining about it. I'm like, why I keep buying it? Wouldn't matter if I had a console. Don't have internet, much requirement for all the new games. You don't have internet. You want internet? Are you in what? Never mind me. Are you here with us in 2024, buddy? I'm just playing. Ken, what's going on, Ken? Great show. Justin, good insight. I appreciate you, Ken. Appreciate you jumping on here, dropping your thoughts. Been grilling up some supper for the family, so I couldn't comment. What you grilling up? Moonbot said some soup. Okay. The super conferences don't make sense. It's going to end up being a Big Ten SEC playoff area. It kind of takes the fun out of it. That's the super conference thing is something we all hope it doesn't get to, but the one thing we know for certain is that this playoff, with the playoffs ever changing and these conference realignments ever changing, we have no idea, even when it gets to 2, what that's going to look like in terms of playoff, or what the NCAA will even look like by that point. But I really hope it never comes to that. I'd like to see the SEC get Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, Miami to get to 20 teams, and the Big get Notre Dame and Stanford to get to 20 teams for a lot of reasons. Notre Dame does fit the Big Ten very, very well. And but man, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for Florida State. And the SEC right now, like they said, it doesn't seem like they're interested. He said they're focusing on the 16 that they have right now. So, we'll see what comes out of that. Very, very interesting to see how that plays out. Notre Dame very much, right now, Notre Dame's not getting a big split of the media deals, the TV media deals money. And I think as the longer that goes on, Notre Dame's hand might get forced in that, because you got to think, if Notre Dame continues to get a smaller piece of the pie than what a lot of these teams and conferences are going to be getting, that's going to kind of impact them a little bit. And they're going to be like, okay, well, let's try to get our football team into a conference, and so they can get some of these splits of these media right deals, because as these get more and more lucrative, the teams in these conferences with the lucrative deals are going to be the ones getting the biggest cuts of those paychecks. And then, as we've seen this past season, the rest kind of gets divvied out across the rest of the field based on, their standing or where they're at in, group of 5, etc. So 45, we got a 45-10 from William, 56-14. I'm going to try to remember these two, because I'm going to have something for y'all when we're doing predictions. When y'all are letting your predictions run here. So 34-6 Nebraska from Justin. Moonbot actually made homemade personal pizzas on the Blackstone. Oh, okay. So we're getting fancy. We're getting fancy there with the Blackstone. Okay. Now we're talking about pizza. Now you're making me hungry. Can't afford it, brother. Watch the show on my phone. Oh, okay. No, I'm just messing with you. I didn't mean to call you out or anything like that. I'm just giving you a hard time. Notre Dame, West Virginia, and Pitt, honestly, are in the Big Ten vicinity. Yeah. At this point, though, regionally, it doesn't matter. We got the Big Ten going from California to New Jersey. So I don't think they care about vicinity or regions at this point. I think it's just a matter of it's who can bring in the most money and who are the partners that they want to work with. And that's really what it's about. It's about pulling yourself ahead in this, so-called arms race that we got going on in college football world right now. Rory had to cut the grass, so I'm late to the game. Are you saying David Sanders is confirmed for another visit to Nebraska? Not confirmed, because this announcement happened about 15 minutes before I went live, maybe 30 minutes before I went live, that they actually announced that he was looking to visit other schools, which, in my opinion, would indicate that he's probably going to be visiting Nebraska again, considering Nebraska is the one school that he has seen the least. And Nebraska is the one school that has been in the recruiting process for him, that got in the recruiting process for him the latest. He's seen a lot of these schools. I believe he's seen Ohio State 3 times. So he's seen a couple of these other schools a few times, and he hasn't seen Nebraska a few times yet. So I would hope, and it would be in Nebraska's, it would be a good look in Nebraska's favor if it was Nebraska that he wants to set up that visit with. Again, I don't know if he's going to see Ohio State again. He's seen Ohio State a few times, Georgia the same thing. So we'll see what that means when he actually makes an announcement. So no announcement officially made yet, but they did announce that he does want to do more visits before August 17th, which is something I'd said before, that if he does do more visits, that would bode well for Nebraska. So it's nice to see that he actually kind of confirmed that. 63-3. We're running up the score. Ron's got us running up the score there. Never mind, you realize you apply to get internet basically free. I don't know how that works, but I'd like free internet. He was good. Heard Notre Dame leaves around $750 million on the table by staying in the ACC till 36, which is it's kind of crazy. Yeah. Notre Dame is in a weird position. We all know that, but I do think that their hand is eventually going to get forced, because it's 750 right now that they're leaving on the table. But we're in just the beginning stages of these kind of lucrative TV deals, like these big time ones, like we've seen these last couple of off seasons, or we've seen kind of coming into effect this season. So that number is only going to grow, and eventually Notre Dame is going to, where Notre Dame is in the echelon of college football. They are a blue blood. They're a team that wins, fairly regularly in terms of, but they just can't kind of get over the hump. And I think they're going to eventually need to establish themselves in a conference for football to get themselves over the hump. They've been ducking football for a while. So, but all right. Again, guys, I appreciate everybody hopping in here, joining me on the show. If you want to drop your comments in here, any questions that y'all may have, drop them in here. I was a little late starting the show. StreamYard was giving me an issue. So if you saw 2 different Nebraska live streams today, I apologize for that. Again, StreamYard was fighting me on this one, but I appreciate everybody tuning into the show this week. It will be a little bit more structured next week, because I don't plan on having these issues going into it, but I got a lot of good stuff coming for y'all this coming week. I will be on tomorrow night with Chancellor's Brewington. What's brewing with Chancellor's Brewington over on, I believe, 93.7 The Tickets YouTube page. So if y'all want to stop in there, I will also be having Adam Carricker. I'll be recording with him. He'll be at Big Ten Media Days. Again, those are the 22nd, 23rd, 24th, I believe, or 23rd, 24th, 25th. And then after he comes back from Big Ten Media Days, I'll have Adam Carricker coming on to record. So we'll be doing you a recap of Big Ten Media Days there. And I'll also have Anthony Grant coming on to the show very, very soon. So y'all stay tuned for that. A lot of exciting stuff coming up for y'all. And if y'all want to hop off of this stream, if y'all want to, when it turns to a video form, drop your comments. Me and Wilson Dittman are doing some Q&A videos. And so if y'all wanted me to do one on this channel, drop your questions in the comments there. I'll be taking the questions from those comments on this video after it posts. And then we'll have a video coming up for you if we get enough questions in there. We have a Q&A coming from his. We'll have a Q&A coming from my side as well. So now a couple more. Ken, 3110 Nebraska. William, great show. Justin, is Nash on the Lombardi watch list? I'm not sure, but should be for all intents and purposes. I think we've seen Nash's growth this over the past few years, but the wrestling thing to me is something that's going to be completely underrated that a lot of people don't realize, because wrestling to me, again, it's the hardest sport to prepare for, and it requires the most conditioning. Like, I box, right? I've been boxing for about a decade, but to me, wrestling is the hardest just because of the amount of work that they put in. He had the discipline to be able to get his weight down. But it also teaches you how to move people. It teaches you how to use your leverage. It teaches you how to balance. It teaches how to explode in a box. And when I mean explode in a box is you learn to gain explosion and leverage from short movements, right? So just from your leg drive, just from, not having to even take a drop step, just being able to come out of your stance and being able to kind of get up under guys. You learn leverage. You learn how to attack leverage. You learn how to move guys around. I think that's going to be the biggest year-over-year difference in Nash is seeing that kind of implement into his game. But he 100%, I believe he will be on the Lombardi watch list for sure. Hope the honeymoon's not over. I don't know what that means, but I hope the honeymoon's not over. Whoever Fong Wei is talking to you, I hope it's not over. All right. Well, again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate each and every single one of you that joins me here every week. Thanks for those that worked through my my issues in the beginning with the stream coming online here. But I got a lot of good stuff for y'all coming this week. Some recordings coming, some guests coming, and then as always, you'll see me next Tuesday on the live stream. And as always, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.